focus nowadays in the United Arab Emirates. Recently, we have heard in the new cabinet of the UAE that the government has appointed 2 ministers to look after this important food security issue. We have Her Excellency Mariam Al-Mehri, who is looking after this file as a food security from the government perspective. And then we have His Excellency Mr. Abdullah Bilhif Al-Naimi, who is also appointed as a Minister for Climate Change and who will also be in charge of the food security. So this gives us a great message that the government is focusing a lot on this topic. And we have seen in the last, I would say, a few months or even a few years, but not so many years, a lot of the business investors have shifted from different industry to the agro business and the agriculture industries, whether they are greenhouses, whether they are hydroponics, or whether they are vertical farming. So today we have 3 experts here and the panelists. We have Dr. Ghanem Al-Hajri, the CEO of Thimar Al-Imarat, a very one of the most successful farms that we have here in Sharjah, and we are very proud of. We have also Dr. Muhammad Ali, who is Associate Director at Dinar Standard, and they are also doing a lot of studies in the agriculture business. And we have Mr. Hemant Joka as well. He's the co-founder and the COO at Vegetech. And before I ask my panelists actually to start introducing themselves, I just want to give also a brief introduction about what we do as a Sharjah FDI office. We are the investment promotion agency of the Emirate of Sharjah, but at the same time, we help actually creating new opportunities within the Emirate of Sharjah. And I think the agro business is something that we will be promoting and focusing on heavily, especially after what have happened with COVID-19, and the whole world realized that the food security and the agro businesses is one of the most and basic sectors that all governments should focus on, because without food, people would not survive. And I think the food security issue is very important, and we realized that even more during the COVID-19 period. We also do facilitation and a process for all investors and investments to the Emirate of Sharjah. We do support the investors through putting them with different government entities, or through sometimes collaboration with the Chamber of Commerce and Sharjah Economic Development Entity to push for some sectors and to help the investors and sometimes lobby on behalf of them. We also open doors for the investors, whether it is with international investors or when it comes to any kind of support in the government of Sharjah itself. So I would like to kindly ask Dr. Ghanem Al-Hajri to introduce himself and to give us a brief introduction about Thimar Al-Imarat.
Good afternoon, gentlemen, and I'm very pleased to share our experience. And thanks for Shurooq for taking such an initiative in order to promote the agro economy within, not only within Sharjah, but the United Arab Emirates. Thimar Al-Imarat is actually a local company being established in 2015, where the idea came to start growing some of the vegetables and the mushroom in the Emirate of Sharjah. And we've really seen a great support from the government an encouragement to go ahead. And there was actually it's 100% national company. It's owned by local people. And we have actually Thimar Imarat, we are growing or utilizing an area of 46 acres. We are growing mushrooms as a main product, and our capacity is up to 6 tons a day of mushroom, and we are already reaching our maximum production, and we are looking for expansion program in the very near future, because of our concept is actually capable of expanding with this sector, which we believe is very important sector. Also, we are growing quite a large number of vegetables, including tomatoes, cherry tomatoes, all kinds of lettuce, and all the leaves item. We are growing more than 3 million plants of vegetables throughout the year, covering 52,716 square meters of area. And we are growing tomato, lettuce, baby leaves, and also we are having an open farm. We grow other vegetables. So this is actually a 2 turnkey project, which have been started production only last year. And still we are, as you know, using a new technology in the area is a very big challenge. We are most of the time now keep experimenting, growing different type of vegetables. What we've achieved quite a lot during such a short period, where we've managed to put our product on the shelves and being really accepted and welcomed by not only the cooperatives but also the individuals, because we are actually catering for the upper market level, and specifically the hospitality sector, where it's very growing. And I think it's important to realize, before we go into more details of the technology which is being utilized on the growing, is that this market is actually in need for such projects. And we believe, and through the market research, that the market size of the vegetables in the UAE is exceeding 16 billion dirhams, and with a growth of almost 9.93% annually. That shows the need for introducing new technologies in order to safeguard our resources, which we know that we have limited resources in terms of water, power, and so on. Therefore, the new technologies will help to reduce tremendously this sector, and at the same time to encourage others to come into the business. We've seen in the past there was a lot of support from the government for the individuals who are growing vegetables and so on, but that is in a very small scale. It could not reach the level of meeting the requirement of the United Arab Emirates. It's the largest market after Saudi Arabia. We are importing almost 80% of our requirements. So there is a great potential of growing all kinds of vegetables and fruit as well. And we believe that using the technology is the way forward. The mass production is an important factor in here. And therefore, there was a lot of requirement from the government, from the legislation side into the implementation side. So there quite a lot has to be done from the government. That we've seen in the federal government that there was a minister assigned for the food security, and also there is a new minister for the trading and so on. And all of this will actually enhance and give more trust to the commercial side or to the investor to come into this sector, because they want to see some assurance, especially to startup operations required a lot of support initially in order to sustain such an important sector and depend on ourselves to grow not only the quality, but also the quantity which is required by the market. And that's required a lot of legislation as far as the imports and the export at the same time. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Ghanem. Now we will move to Dr. Muhammad. Maybe you can introduce yourself and then give us a brief introduction about DINAR standards and what sort of studies do you do, especially in this field?
Thank you very much, Mr. Muhammad. Dr. Muhammad Ali, working as associate partner with DINAR Standards. DINAR Standards is a consulting firm which acting in three segments mainly of market-leading expertise. We are leading the halal, what we call halal industry and Islamic economy leadership globally, and we are publishing every year the state of the global Islamic economy, where we track all the halal industry, which is whether it's food, tourism, travel, and lifestyle. But also we focus on Islamic finance as well. Our second segment is government innovation and intelligence. So we are working with government, with the World Government Summit, with the Islamic Economy Summit as well, and so on. The third segment is the social impact economy footprint. So we are tracking everything related to the social lifestyle, etc. Just a brief about the halal industry worldwide, which represents now around 2.2 trillion in terms of spending. And this is a very attractive market if we will speak about export and opportunity for all countries, Islamic countries, and particularly for UAE, which is doing very, very well in this field. Our work is high impact on growth and strategies and execution. We are in innovation and strategy, in marketing, in investment, in fintech, and public policy. Our clients and our partners, I would say, they are spanning from government organization, international banks, investment funds, private companies, international organization as well, and NGOs. And we have been working with all these clients, I would say prestigious clients for many years now. And in UAE, we are focusing on halal industry, but as well as innovation with government. Myself, I'm an expert in food sector. I've been working in this sector more than 17 years. I've been working in many fields in this sector. In food security, mainly these last 3 years, focusing in UAE food security strategy. I've been in trading and operation, in hospitality and retail. I'm having a doctor from France in international investment and trade. And I started my career in Egypt with an agri-food project where I was project director, which was a JV between French and Egyptian companies. Then I moved to UAE, where I've been working in many groups in food sector, like Americana, Al Hashimiya Group, Emirates Business Group, Emirates International Group for Food and Agriculture, and so on. As well, I'm a member of many think tank and food groups thinking in the MENA region as well. Thank you very much, Excellent. Mr. Muhammad, for inviting me and our company to present our thoughts in this subject.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. Now I will move to our friend Hemant from Vegetech. If you can please give us an introduction about Vegetech. Although I visited the farm, we want to know more about what do you do personally and then on Vegetech level as well.
Sure. So thank you so much. Firstly, it's a real privilege to be on this panel with such elite members. Dr. Ghanem, we know We really respect him a lot for all the work he has done in food security and all the numbers which he kind of talks about. So, we really look up to him to kind of, seek inspiration all the time. Thank you to you, Mohammed, for inviting us in here. I have to kind of, uh, you know, say how thankful we are at Vegetech to be looked after and to be cared for by leaders like yourself. The fact that you took time out of your busy diary and spent so much time with us on our farms, try to learn what we are doing and try to actually understand the technology we bring in really means a lot to us. So thank you so much for that as well, Mohammed, from an Invest in Sharjah perspective. Vegetech is an agrotech organization. We have been based in the UAE since 2016. Our headquarters are in Seoul in South Korea. We bring in technology to disrupt agriculture, specifically in 3 areas, which are the challenges to traditional farming in UAE. Those are soil, temperature, and water. So we focus on trying to create sustainable and environmental friendly farms using technology to create the maximum output in a 12-month cycle. So as you know, the region essentially has 40-degree plus temperature for at least 5 months of the year, which makes traditional farming very hard. Add to that the lack of topsoil in the country because of the desert region we are in, and plus the fact that it's a desert area, so we actually always have to rely on groundwater mostly to kind of get the water for our farms. So this is where we have brought in technology in the form of indoor vertical farms and hydroponics technology so that we can convert our greenhouses into literally the coolest greenhouses in UAE. At the same time, convert indoor spaces into grow areas, which can provide you agricultural produce for 12 months a year. We decided not to just talk about this technology, but land the technology in Sharjah. So, I would really, once, hopefully the COVID situation improves, we would love to invite you to come to our farms, like how, Dr. Ghanem has come in, Mohammed has come in onto the farm to come in. So you can come and sample this technology for yourself. So we have an 8-acre farm, which is 32,000 square meters, which we call the lab. And this lab is where you can come and touch and feel the technology, which we bring to the region. The technology is not just for the sake of technology, but actually creates commercial grade farms where the investors and the customers can get return on investment. We have also tried to kind of make a social enterprise out of Vegetech. So we have involved the community a lot. We actually have a lot of applied research projects with the University of Sharjah, the American University of Sharjah. And lately we have set ourselves up the Vegetech Innovation Labs in the exciting space of Sharjah Research Technology Innovation Park. So we are really immersing ourselves into the ecosystem which Sharjah offers to us, because we do believe that the students are our future leaders. And if we want to be a food secure nation, our students have to be part of that story. And hence we really welcome. So last year we had more than 3,000 students who came and visited the farms, where they were given a first-hand view of what technology can do for the region. Plus they get to take home some fresh produce from the farm. So this is what we actually are trying to focus on, where we are bringing technology to create a positive social impact onto our society itself. So this is, where we're kind of going with, with the grace of, the good Lord, plus the blessings of our friends and family, we now actually have around 60 acres of farms that we have built and we operate within UAE. We produced last year more than 1.6 million kilograms of fresh vegetables that kind of actually went into the households of UAE. Plus, we also have now got technology that creates food transparency. And you will hear me talk a little bit about that, later on. But this is where, sitting at home, looking at a QR code, everybody can understand the seeding date of the tomato. They can understand what is the nutrition that we used to kind of grow that tomato. Did we use any fertilizers? What is the calorie count of that particular crop? And for the first time as a consumer, you can see the greenhouse or the part of the farm from where this produce has come. So we are also creating technology where we want to address the concerns of the consumer, that how fresh is my produce? And now we have brought that technology as well as part of Vegetech.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. We are lucky today actually to have a local investor and a foreign investor, and also a sector expert and a consulting firm who is also involved into financing and funds who might be interested in these kinds of sectors and businesses. So I'll go back to Dr. Ghanem. And Dr. Ghanem, I know that you are also part of the UAE Food Security Committee. If you can tell us what is expected or what initiatives should both the federal government and local governments should take to support this specific sector?
You know, I'm very pleased to be part of that technical group. Actually, it is not there is more than different groups. Actually, we are in the technical group where we are evaluating the technology which each one of us is having, and apparently all the group are actually very highly expert on the technology, and there is like 3 or 4 different technologies, including vertical farming. We have hydroponic farmings, and it's different levels and different technology. But all of those technologies actually are, for example, in terms of the water consumption, all those technologies saving more than 80% of water in comparison to the, you know, the traditional way of farming. We are also recycling all of our cooling system water 100%, so there is no wastage of that. Timar al-Imarat actually probably the only farm in the whole GCC where we are using actually solar power to produce half of our energy, and that shows us our commitment to our environment, and that things are growing in a very highest standard in terms of safeguarding our natural resources. The group is actually trying to advise on those technologies, but we believe in bringing such a technology, it costs a lot of money, not only to purchase or to acquire, but also to maintain in order to have a sustainable growing throughout the year. And there is quite a big challenges because you just can't blindly bring technology from anywhere else and try to implement it. You need to examine it, you need to see it, you need to test it. And we've been successfully doing that, and we are also trying to improve whatever been, you know, what's been installed so far. We have some challenges which we are working on, but that's the good side of it, that the government is supportive. The government are listening to the people in the field, people from the country, not imported from anywhere else. You can see it, you observe it, you test it, you measure it, you evaluate it. And that's give a better idea of the government. And from this perspective, the government trying to see how could they have the sustainable growing methods, which we have now throughout the Emirates. And from the federal government, they're trying to come up with some sort of strategy in terms of supporting those technologies. There is different sectors, whether it's subsidizing the power requirement, the water consumption, the market research, the market requirement, the quality assurance and testing and evaluating, because this is the biggest challenge now. We are importing from all over the world. We are not knowing the nature of this product, in terms of health, in terms of security. This needs to be really evaluated. While we are in the UAE, we are really having a very high control on what we produce. And this is very healthy, important for the individuals who live in the Emirates. And therefore, the support is a very important from the government, at least to start up such project and also to encourage others to come. There is no doubt that the requirement is there, the market is there, the size of the market is there. It's a matter of controlling it. So there is a federal government policies and so on, because also the government has been an active member in all the international platform, and there is a commitment as far as how far they can subsidize and how far they can support in order to be in the global economy or a global market. So therefore, we understand that, but there's still a lot of initiative can be done in terms of controlling what is coming into the market, the quality of the products which is coming in the market, the unfortunately, the dumping which is happening or taking place currently in the market. This all needs to be addressed and to plan it in a very constructive way, and also with the support and from the local government and also the federal government. From the federal government, they are trying to put the strategies, and we know that some Emirates like Abu Dhabi and Dubai, they already started the food security committee to look after this. We hope that the rest of the Emirates also can reach on that level and try to coordinate with the federal government in order to have the sustainable and also the supportive measure. The support can take different shapes in this, so whether in terms of marketing, in terms of logistics, in terms of, because, you know, we have, for example, many small farms in the area, but they don't have the logistic support. They don't have the proper cooling system, the proper packing, the proper entry into the market. The market is controlled by traders who is difficult to penetrate, and therefore it has to, we must have a legislation which gives the local production the first of all, then the recognition, and then to have the doors open for the growers to come into the market. It is not fair when we look at the market where the profit margin and the shelves are 200% more than what is being taken from the grower, who are hardly covering his expenses in order to meet that. But the way it's going on now with the involvement of the government, and started in Abu Dhabi by insisting or by law that 20% of the required vegetable has to be from the local market. I think this is a great news, and we hope we could see this throughout the Emirates. And that's because you are for sure having a better quality, but at the same time with a reasonable price. So I think the cooperative or the supermarket chain or so on, they have a responsibility as well toward the economy and toward the people, and therefore it's not fair as well to margin their goods to that level while they are insisting to purchase everything as a local. So here we have also another issue which is very important, the quality assurance and the certification of the production of the UAE has to be recognized, has to be marketed by the government and through also the supply chain in order to have a sustainable growth. Every one of us has a responsibility towards the economy, but I think the initiative so far is very promising. We are willing to cooperate. We cooperate with all the responsible bodies in order to have a sustainable market and to depend on our economy to produce the highest quality of vegetables.
Thank you, Dr. Ghanem, for your valuable insights. I think now it's our role as in charge of the FDI government to note all of these comments and then transfer it to different bodies in the government and to help growing this sector in the Emirate. I will move to Dr. Muhammad. Dr. Muhammad, mashallah, you have an experience of 18 years in the food sector. You know, the UAE previously, when we used to say agriculture, people used to say that the UAE is a desert land, and you cannot grow a lot of products in the UAE, and because of the climate also, not only because of the land. So now, with the new technologies, how do you think that we will overcome these challenges that we have here with the climate or with the land?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mohammed, again for inviting me with your prestigious panelists. Before answering to this question, let me emphasize some main points. that was mentioned by Dr. Ghanem and Mr. Heyman. Yes, definitely we should see agriculture as a main strategy helping food security, okay, of the country. And from that point, we need, government should take this as a very big concern because we saw this during the COVID-19 pandemic. And if you allow me, I have to show some figures. As dinner standard, we are following up very, very tightly during the pandemic, and we published it recently, what we call the Global Food Industry 15 post-COVID-19 signals. And we addressed a lot of important actions as well for the government. If I may share some points for the. Sorry for that.
Sure.
Do you see something?
Yes.
I will make it. You see the full screen now?
Yes.
Yeah.
So mainly the agriculture, and especially in our region, is facing a lot of challenges. I would not say this natural, this climate, etc., but there is operational challenges, as was mentioned by Dr. Ghanem, which is very important, that people are growing producer and they cannot sell it, or it's going to waste. This is dramatically, I saw this by myself. So this is really important to address, and I think the government here should, they did already, and we saw this during the COVID-19 outbreak, and during the lockdown, the only food and the only produce you can find in retail stores are the local produce. And this is where amazing that if you go to any of the retailer without naming them, you will find most of the vegetable, they are coming from UAE. And this is important in terms of food security, that government should see this as a very positive and an opportunity. In every crisis, people should see it as an opportunity. And for agriculture and for farming in UAE, this is the really good opportunity for them. So, in fact, we have to ask some questions about all these topics. What we eat, how much we waste, and how we are farming our lands. This is important to know from the food security point of view. And we have been tracking worldwide. These numbers are very important to people to know that agriculture, especially if I would come back to this later. If you see here during the COVID-19 pandemic outbreak, the most vulnerable sector was the agriculture. If you see here, the livestock, vegetable and fruit, meat and poultry, fish product, they are the mainly exported items, but at the same time, they are the mainly hit sectors. And if you see, and it's related to the degree of pandemic in the country. You see, USA is the sectors in livestock, in B2B ingredient, in meat and poultry, they are too much affected in USA, while in other, for example, Germany or Netherlands, etc., they are not that much affected. This is important. I come back to this slide, which is important to show us some challenges that the agriculture is facing. Everybody knows that the climate change is very important, is very dramatic in terms of impact, and the greenhouses CO2 emission is a very big important an important matter to tackle. We have food wastage. 33% of the food we produce go to the bin. Within maybe 2050, we will be 10 billion, so we have to feed these people. So this is a complete picture how do the global food industry and agriculture are together. And you see here, the food security, we understand that we have made a framework to show how the level of food security in some countries, okay? We see here UAE is very high in terms of food security. They have very high level, but they are still not importing food and depending. But they are food secure. In another case, countries like Sudan or Afghanistan, Yemen, Angola, etc., they have land, they have everything, but they are not food secure. They are food insecure. So this is a very important matter as well to know. And I have to give an example which is very, very relevant in this topic, which is Holland, which is Netherlands. They're like the same of a very small country, but in terms of exports, if you see here, in terms of exports, in terms of exports here, the global trade, top exporter, Holland is the second in terms of top exporter of agri-food business. How it comes, a very small country is doing amazing exports all over the world. This is because they are using technology. And I come back here to your question. Netherlands, they invest a lot in high tech, especially I would not specify, and they are following every phase. They started with maybe greenhouses, simple greenhouses, then they moved to hydroponics, then they move now to vertical farming, and so on and so on. And if you go to any supermarket, you will find mostly the vegetables are coming from Netherlands. For technology, there is a lot of things that government and private sector should work together to have this, is to implement not only technology in terms of operation, but there is a technology which can be like supportive technology to maintain these operations. I know that I'm a little bit late, but if I have to say at the end, what should government be doing to overcome these challenges? Dr. Ghanem, he mentioned many elements was taken by UAE government, especially this private-public partnership in the regulation. I remember it was published in March, which is making really very tight relationship between the government and the companies and the food sector companies. So I think before government, they are working as an industry promoter and facilitator. This is important. Okay, in this case, government are just enabling and making ecosystem and having some initiatives, creating some positive environment for private companies. But I think not only with this COVID-19 pandemic, but to have the food security target, we need to change our action in terms of partnership with the private company, and we should have a target goal-oriented effort. We bring together these private companies and we put a roadmap and we put execution together. So they have to improve the ecosystem. They have as well to play an investor role with the private companies. They have to give more flexibility in terms of regulation. They have to provide infrastructure as well as affordable prices, and so on and so on. Sorry for being a little bit long for that. If I may miss something, I will add it later on, inshallah.
Thank you, Dr. Mohammed. Actually, I'm receiving some questions, and some of the audience are actually asking for a copy of the presentation that you have presented just now. So maybe we can have it as an FDI office, and then we can put it through one of our platforms. We go back to Mr. Hammond. Vegetech, a company that was established in 2016 in Korea. And now you are engaged in the ecosystem of the Emirate of Sharjah. You are part of Sharjah Research and Technology Park. You are engaged with different government entities. You are engaged with the students, the universities. What made you decide to come to this part of the world, or to Sharjah specifically?
That's a very good question, Mohammed. I think firstly, the technology that we created in Seoul in South Korea, we did that around 7 years ago. We spent 4 years researching and trialing the technology across 18 harvest cycles, checking against 96 molecules of the produce that comes through to make sure that this is a robust technology that can be scaled to the industry level. Once we did that, that's when we actually arrived in Sharjah. As we mentioned, there were, I think, 3 key factors in terms of how we arrived in Sharjah. I think firstly, I would really like to highlight Sheikha Jamila. The first project which Vegetech worked on was the Al Zaya School in Korfakan, where it was her vision to set up a smart farm for the children of that school. So I cannot thank her enough for her vision of bringing a company like Vegetech into Sharjah to focus on that project. From there on, the business-friendly environment in Sharjah is very, very important. I think the access to leaders like yourself, Mohammed, the access to leaders like His Excellency Marwan Al-Sarkar, this is what actually gives us the edge as businessmen. The ease of doing business is very, very important. And also, I would like to even highlight the role of Dr. Ghanem. Dr. Ghanem is a pioneer in the space of agriculture for the country. And even his openness to welcome Vegetech, come to our farms, give us his advice, invite us to his farms. This just shows you the camaraderie that we share in Sharjah. So I think this is very, very unique, and I must salute the vision of His Excellency, to kind of create such a spirit of brotherhood in the emirate itself. So that's very important. Second part I would say is the focus on education, the university ecosystem that is actually, you can feel it, the vibrancy in Sharjah. The access to more than 30,000 students in the University of Sharjah, in the American University of Sharjah, and the fact that the Sharjah Research Technology Innovation Park is right in the middle of that particular ecosystem. And it's not just that it's available there. If you see the quality of projects that we're doing, for example, right now we are running a project with the University of Sharjah, with the head of electrical engineering department, where we are creating a glove which, using bioimpedance, can tell how fresh a cucumber is, how fresh a tomato is. And when you combine that with virtual reality glasses, that tomato will talk to you and tell you, is it fit to eat? So this is where, and this is where we kind of driving technology in agriculture in the Emirate of Sharjah. So this is just one small example which we are working on. We're also working with the architecture students in University of Sharjah, where we are trying to architect the future indoor vertical farms. How will they look? How can we optimize the space? How can we optimize the path of the sun in Sharjah, so that we can actually create the direction of the indoor vertical farm, where we can get the sunlight from the sun, but also shield it away from the temperature of the sun. So this is the experiments we are doing with the students of the architecture unit within the University of Sharjah architecture team, to kind of bring some of these things together. You will see very soon that we will actually be bringing in the photobioreactor into Sharjah Research Technology Innovation Park, where we will be farming food grade algae. So, of course, we want to kind of make sure that the per square meter production from our farms is good. So currently in our greenhouses, we are producing somewhere between 35 kilograms to 40 kilograms of produce per square meter per annum. In our indoor vertical farms, we are producing 900 kilograms per square meter per annum. But we also want to bring in some new areas, which is where the food grade algae farming is coming in, where we would like to start creating chlorella, spirulina, and hopefully astaxanthin as well. So these will be the areas where we want to start pioneering and bring innovation into Sharjah itself. So this is what I would say is one of the attractions of why Vegetech basically set itself up in Sharjah.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Mr. Hammam. We have actually 15 to 20 minutes to go. I will ask each one of you another one question, and maybe we can answer them quickly. If I go back to Dr. Ghanem, Dr. Ghanem, you mentioned that 80% of the food products in the UAE are still imported. And I have a question in front of me from one of the attendees asking about the number of products exported from both farms in Sharjah. Before we answer his question, I have a question. When do you think, Dr. Ghanem, we will reach to 100% food security in the UAE? And when do you think, when and how we will start exporting from the UAE to the rest of the world?
See, it's a very big question, and I don't think anybody could be able to answer this question because that is, I would say, it's difficult to achieve, because we talk about food security, it's quite wide open. It started from potato to up to rice, up to many other things which the community required it. But there is some essential item which we believe that is achievable if we've got the right marketing strategies and the opening of the market, and also controlling all the imports from abroad. See, the UAE is location, and with the grace of God and the efforts of His Highness around the UAE, they've managed to create a real image of UAE being the hub, not only for trading, but the hub for re-exporting and the hub for rerouting the products. Dr. Mohammed mentioned that Holland is such a small country, but they produce much more than what they in their space. They do that only because they use their infrastructure as a logistic. So all the flowers from all over the world come to Holland in order to re-export it to the rest of the world. The UAE also, we are doing the same thing. We are still, even though 80% we are import, but I would say more than 30% are re-exported again to the region and to all the islands around in the Indian Ocean and other places. So we are actually using the logistic support of the UAE and the network of the capacities available in terms of airline and in terms of the shipping line feeding into the UAE. We'll be able, because of the infrastructure, because of the facilities available, cold stores and so on, we are able to actually export a lot of those items abroad to the rest of the world. Yes, we are exporting some of our product now from Thimar to Saudi Arabia, especially the mushroom. But see, the Saudis market is a great market, it's a big market, but because they are controlled, they are not allowing everything to come into the market. The item which they are producing, they are having a margin of almost up to 40% tax on that. And the other item up to 20 to 40% to protect the local manufacturing and or local growers in terms we're talking about agriculture in here. And that's the initiative we need to go. I mean, that's one example, but you can have 5, 6 different modules which you can implement. Necessarily saying this is the right thing for us. What is good for other countries might not be good for us. But I think through the communication, through the discussion which is taking place now, listening to different experts, listening to different people from different positions, because everyone look at it from his own angle. So to have all of this experience talking together, the initiative by the government, talking to the local, to the private sector, I think that's the way forward, because we can have sustainable growing methods if we have the right infrastructure and atmosphere to grow the business. And the potential is great. The potential is good, but it needs a real good support to enable, improve this sector, not only for food security, but also for the economic values or added value when you grow items in the country. Now, if we are talking about around 16 billion dirham worth of trade on the agriculture and fruit, you can see that a lot of this, almost 50%, being paid by the UAE economy for outside, and that the value of the return value of that, if you spend it in the local economy, the multiplier is much greater benefit to the UAE rather than importing it from abroad. So it's not a matter of importing it, but you look at the value which you can generate within the economy itself, and then you will find the multiplier are actually gaining more through even, this is why I said, why should the government support this industry? They support it because of this. If you are the multiplier within the country with the hospitality, with the aviation, with all of that, the contribution is much greater than what the government might spend in the local economy.
Thank you, Dr. Ghanem.
I hope I answered the question. It's quite a big question, but I'll try to do my best to summarize some of this.
We wanted to hear your insights on this. And actually, I was very happy to hear that you started exporting to the Saudi market. I think this is something that we are proud of, that a company or a farm in Sharjah is producing and exporting its products to the region. Thank you, Dr. Ghanem. Dr. Muhammad, briefly, one recommendation from your side to boost this industry.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muhammad. I would say there is a big challenge for the local agriculture. Now it has been showing during this pandemic that they are here and they are very strong. The big challenge is to come to adapt new technology, as Mr. Herman was mentioning. It's not a problem of using vertical farming, hydroponics, greenhouses, controlled environment agriculture, of circular economy. This is all models we can adjust. But we have to use other technologies like artificial intelligence to adapt the efficiency of the supply chain. And we saw this during this COVID-19, that the food supply chain have been disrupted for the whole world, okay? And my recommendation will be, we have to focus for our locally produced product on cost, I would say, on availability and quality. Why consumer? Because we have to see what's the behavior of the consumer itself. The consumer is buying produce coming from Holland or from Europe or from whatever. Why he don't buy locally produced, let's say cucumber or whatever? Now there is trend buying locally, but because cost-wise, availability for the whole year, and the quality, consistency of quality. This is very important. I think if there is a recommendation, I would say focus on these three pillars, and inshallah, agriculture in UAE is promising, and there is, for investor, they have to come and they have to see what's happening. And the real economy is what's happening in the farms.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. Hemant, one last question. What do you think the focus should be to create a positive environment for the agro-tech businesses? Not necessarily from the government, I mean from all the stakeholders in this whole agro-tech ecosystem.
Absolutely. And thank you for mentioning that, Mohammed, because as Vegitech, we are really focusing on the entire stakeholder ecosystem, because we think that it's a networked economy, because it's only the networked economies that will survive in the digital world. So for us, it's very important to understand who the stakeholders are. So I'll start with the consumers first here. I think we need to, as an industry, and I think, this is where somebody like Vegitech and, Dr. Ghanem, Istimal and Imad, we have to step up and we have to raise the awareness in consumers of what is the benefits of actually having local produce. I know for a fact on my farm that 1,000 kilograms of cucumbers will reduce 235 kilograms of carbon emissions in. If I'm able to translate this into my consumers, the next time a consumer goes into the supermarket, they will be wanting to kind of pick up the local produce. So this is where, that's the first part I would kind of say. The second part I would say is our entire B2B and the B2R space. I think Dr. Ghanem has already mentioned that part, but we need to ensure that we are able to, incentivize in some way those partners so that they can actually go for the local producer over an imported item, which is coming from the outside. Thirdly, we have to involve the academia and the innovation labs. We have to really get them structured to kind of focus on that stuff. And I'm really happy that with Sharjah Research Technology Innovation Park and with the University of Sharjah ecosystem, we have found that space there. So I think that's very, very important to kind of energize that particular segment. And lastly, there are a few pockets which do need to focus on. I would actually point out two of those, and I don't want to be critical about them, but it's just that we need to kind of pay more focus on those. So the first one essentially is around the insurance sector. On the agriculture industry side, we do need to kind of start looking at some insurance practices which will assist the insurer as well as the farmer. So we need to kind of actually bring some of those elements in place. And the second one I would say is around the financing side of things, where when you want to have new entrants coming into the market, how would you adjust your financing capabilities, which will allow for some finance to be made available specifically for the current working capital of the agriculture industry? Because the peaks and troughs of the agriculture industry are a bit different from all of the others, given the weather patterns and the technologies they may be utilizing it. So that would, I would say, would be something which I would, kind of actually bring to the table. I'm also very happy that because we have some very visionary leaders, we are getting the ears of those leadership, and they are looking to kind of improve some of those elements as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you, Hemant. Actually, we ran out of time. It's almost 2, but we will take 2 questions only. One question was about the cost of electricity and water in the UAE, and how do farms like you cope with the cost of electricity and water. I know Dr. Ghanem mentioned that they have implemented the solar panels. 40% of the electricity is coming from the solar. And then we have another question also, which talks about any efforts in the future to increase the use of solar. So most of the questions are actually around the power and the water.
Yeah. So if I may take that question, Mohammed. So I think, yes, I think on the agriculture farmland, the cost of electricity is subsidized to the farmer. So I think that is definitely good news, which you have. And hence it's not such an issue in terms of actually having indoor vertical farms coming on the agriculture farmlands here. But even in the COVID environment, and this is where we are having conversation with the real estate industry people, working with a partner like Vegitech, where we own all the components of technology, we would be able to convert warehouses that are potentially empty right now into indoor vertical farms. Even with commercial electricity rates, we would be able to give you 20% plus ROI. So, this is how, this is the potential of the market, because as Dr. Ghanem mentioned, only 20% is produced locally. The upside is 80%, especially in the green leafies that are produced in the indoor vertical farms. there is a huge demand coming into the hospitality sector, coming into the hotel industry, which are looking for this produce 12 months a year, which you can satisfy using the indoor vertical farm technology.
Thank you. Dr. Ghanem, do you want to add anything on this?
I think this is the most important factor when it comes to costing, actually, especially during the summer period where you required a lot of cooling and as well a lot of power and water consumption. But I mean, this is why we are saying, you know, that using the new technology, using solar, allowing the farming to use such a technology. But this is not important. I think it will be more useful if we can be linked to the grid, to the main power supply in the future. That where will have an added value, not only because we might not produce, we are producing a lot, but we are not using it. So you need to have that sort of subsidies in order to sustain and to keep our cost down. Because the challenge is to keep the cost down. I mean, if we'll be able to do that, this will definitely reflect on the economy of scale for what we are producing, because still the cost of production is higher if you compare it to, for example, the products which coming from abroad, because the other countries actually subsidize. You'll be surprised to know that the raw material, the power, the water in Holland are cheaper than us. I mean, you expect in Europe that it will be more expensive, but we are doing some visibility on other projects now, and we realize we are actually more expensive than them. But to show you the importance of the support of the government to this sector, it's very important to subsidize, very important to support in order to have a strategic, objective for the food security and sustainable food production. It's not a matter of today, but this is for the future. And I'm sure with the implementation of new technologies, and everybody is keen to bring in a new technology, bringing whatever can reduce our costs in producing power that we are using. Even to an extent, for example, we decided in the summer to stop growing certain products because it will consume higher water, even though we'll be able to sell it. But we have a commitment towards our economy not to misuse the resources. And this education is very important to everybody to understand. It's not a matter of, if I'm not making a profit out of it, why should I grow it at this stage? I rather do some experiment to do something more beneficiary for the economy and for my country, and at the end for ourselves.
Thank you, Dr. Ghanem. There is another one interesting comment from one of the attendees that talks about the agricultural universities, or are there any training institutes in the UAE which can train traditional farmers to adapt to new technologies in farming? I haven't heard of any. I don't know if any of the panelists have heard, or you heard that there are plans within our universities to introduce such a program.
I think Mr. Hement is the right person. They are already taking this initiative and supporting individually, but I hope we can take more into an institute rather than a social, added value. So I think he is the right person to comment on that.
Right. Thank you so much, Dr. Ghanem. Yes, so we have a learning hub on the farm. We are creating a center of excellence for alternative agriculture practices. The curriculum is already in place where we are able to kind of take farmers. So we actually have been quite honored to have two of the agronomists from MOCA, which is Ministry of Climate Change and Environment, to come to the farms and visit all the work that is done on our farms, in the indoor vertical farms and on the hydroponics side of things. So we are developing that curriculum, and as rightly mentioned by Dr. Ghanem, now we will associate ourselves with the federal ministry, and we are taking the whole education program into the ministry as well. So hopefully you'll see a lot more activity happening in that space. We're also very happy over the next month. We have created a program for 6-year-olds to 10-year-olds, 10-year-olds to 14-year-olds, and 14-year-olds to 18-year-olds under the auspices of Her Excellency Mariam Al-Mary, where we'll be doing webinars for children to get them closer to knowing their food and how they can grow their food.
Excellent.
Amazing.
Well, thank you so much, Ahmed.
Make a minute,
Yes, please go ahead, Doctor.
This is exactly the trend that the government should take to enhance the agriculture with technology at the same time, is to make this public-private partnership, not only in terms of production of sites, facilitating this, but as well as getting the awareness of the food security and the agriculture to the youth, and to link universities, schools, etc. from the beginning with this strategy, so that they grow up with having these goals.
Excellent. Well, I think we have reached to the end of our interesting session. Thank you so much, Dr. Ghanem. Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. Thank you, Mr. Hammond, for all these insights and rich information. I hope also the attendees have benefited a lot from these insights. We had some other questions, but actually because of the timing of the session, we are sorry we cannot take all of the questions. Again, thanks a lot for the panelists and for the attendees for attending this session, and hopefully we will be together very soon discussing some of the initiatives that the government will take forward out of this session, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shukran. Thank you.
Thank you.